I think the best conclusion of this open session will be a keynote lecture from His Excellency Dr. Adel Biltagi, the one who is behind the whole idea of our meeting today and the coming 2 days. And we will be very eager to listen to you, Dr. Adel, and thank you very much for all the efforts. And thanks again for the organizing committee, the local one, the international one, and all who are with us today. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, today what we are going to talk about is the challenges of which is facing us on this planet Earth, and these challenges are many. This is not working. Yeah, we would like to avoid having 4 centigrade increase in the temperature of this planet, and therefore we need to work very hard. This is not helpful. Can I have somebody from the assistance? We need to look that and use the means and ways of how we can avoid this catastrophe of increasing heat. Okay. Okay, that's not working. Okay. Therefore, this increase in temperature could really could move even beyond the 4 centigrade. This is the IPCC assessment, which is 2001. And I will give you the recent one, which was published in 2022. And this is IPCC 2022, where we can see clearly that we are going, in 2030, it will move up close to 3 centigrade. And this is, every line here represents different scenarios with different modeling system. But we could arrive by the end of 2100 to more than 5 centigrade. This is a really great catastrophe for all the living organisms on this planet, because 1.5 centigrade, which we were aiming at after the Paris Agreement, was not satisfactory. But even we are moving beyond this, tremendously beyond this. The sea level rise is going to be evident, the coral bleaching, as well as decay for the coral reef will happen, and this is not a very good scenario. Therefore, this is from our doing as human beings on this planet. Some areas are projected to become wetter, others will become drier. Russia will win from that because the North Sea is going to open for communication, and they are going to use all the wealth there, as well as Canada is going to be as well in a better position, but the rest of the world is going to be affected. Nobody will escape this. The United States, if we calculate how much they spent in the last 4 years, even in Trump time, it's about $2.8 trillion coming out of the climate change. Severe weather conditions, hurricanes, and the rest of it has caused a lot of damage. In the dry areas, we will have an exodus for the inhabitants from this area, going somewhere else where there is a green meadow. The problem is in this, what you're seeing now is the impact on food, water, ecosystem, extreme weather events, risk, irreversible change. And all of this could happen in this increasing pressure of climate change. I will talk now precisely on what will happen in agriculture, All these red spots are the spots which will be affected. We are talking here about a reduction in the production of food in the world from 25% to 50% by year 2050. And this is enormous. Imagine we are wasting food. At least 35% of the world food production are wasted. Post-harvest aspects are not there, and we need to do it. But as well as we will have reduction of between 25 to 50% by year 2050. In addition to this, there is increase in population, which will require 70% more production. And the farmers everywhere are going to be affected. As I was saying, 70% more food is needed while we are going down. How can we feed the world by this? Even this picture shows you the agony of this creature who's being captured in the water after the melting the ice around it from everywhere. The threatened delta in the world, there was a lot of studies about 80 deltas of the world. The most serious effect and impact will be in the Nile Valley Delta and the Mekong River. And this will mean an exodus of all the industrial installment on the sea, as well as the population. They have to go somewhere else. And this is, of course, catastrophic. Here in Egypt, we have a scenario for 50 centimeter increase of the level or 1 meter. And this will affect agriculture because we are going to lose not only, the sea may go close to Al-Mahalla, which is down there close to Tanta. Then you can go for the summer in Tanta rather than going to Alexandria. But what's more dangerous is the seawater intrusion, which will go in the rest under the fresh water. There will be seawater intrusion from the sea to the delta, which will affect agriculture tremendously. Therefore, we need to do something about this. This is the level of the increase. We are talking about 20 centimeters. If it goes up to 40 to 60 centimeters by year 2050, this is how it looks. But by year 2100, this man and his child, this is the picture of how they will look. This is a city called Passau in Germany, which I visited in 1963. And this is a flood from the Danube River. All the major rivers, not only in Europe, but in China and India, is going to be highly affected because the ice caps of the mountains which feed this river is going to melt. And therefore we'll have huge problem of flooding in Europe. Climate change as well affect aquaculture. Our colleague, Professor Osman from Ain Shams University is going to talk about the impact on aquaculture, which will be enormous. Not only inland fishery, but marine fishery is going to be affected because the plankton is going to be affected, both types of plankton. And there is an area already under Latin America, which is the size of the whole of Latin America, as the changes already is being observed. And the coral reef, because it's a place where there will be a lot of breeding for fish. As far as the animal concern, we are concerned about zoonotic diseases, which is a transmission of disease from animals to human beings, as well as there is no passports for this. And therefore you have open border, you don't have to go through the police to show your passport. It's very dangerous. This is happening. The World Organization for Animal Health, OIE, is taking care of this, as well as a lot of monitoring has to be done. With us in this room, Dr. Mohsen Shokri, who chaired the Livestock and Fisheries Council of the Academy, and with him, Dr. Adel Abunaga as well. They are going to talk in this meeting about this. Talking about analysis and prediction, we need to continue this process, and the World Climate Research Program, which is very important research program. This program really has really made a lot of focus on 3 areas for agriculture, and this is in North America, in Europe, as well as a part which is close to China and in Asia. But where is Africa in this? It's not there. And therefore, we need to be very careful. Food is not only on this high yielding spots in the world. This is political. But when you talk about people in Africa, where is the spot here to be studied well, and we make proper assessment for the impact of climate change on these valuable areas, at least for us, the inhabitant of this place. Equation here that with the emission, all the emission from agriculture is about 25%. And my colleagues who will talk on the session about the livestock and animal, they will talk about this issue. But as well, we need, as agriculture production, to balance agriculture production with the waste and losses which is happening. And one important issue is the nutrition. Awareness of people of changing diet. We cannot continue doing what we are doing in wasting food and even harming ourselves. We had the Dean of School of Medicine, probably, and we have a lot of wonderful scholars in medicine here. If you don't change the diet for the sake of the human being, you will lose the battle before you start it, because it doesn't matter what you do, especially with pregnant women and young children who didn't really arrive to 6 months. The cognitive formation, the brain, is highly affected in this period. Of course, we have poultry. Poultry as well is involved on this. We have a dean he's specialized in poultry. Let me go back here. This is the literature of science of climate change and the growing public awareness and the improvement of various actors, the IPCC assessment. This data for 2022, it shows you the increase of this domain of science and the involvement. Here it's not in agriculture only. In all domains of science, there is an increased interest of the impact of climate change. Any thermo-liable cell will be affected. Therefore, it doesn't matter where you are, humans included. Research agenda, it has to encompass climate change, variability, risk reduction and resilience, biodiversity and ecosystem change in atmospheric, terrestrial and marine domain, resource utilization and pathway for the sustainable development. All these aspects we have to take care of. We need to go through the adaptation elements and mitigation, as well as global stock taking for all this information to transfer it and in a very transparent action, and go to public awareness and capacity development. Part of the capacity development is where we are standing now. Universities, education centers, research centers. This is where knowledge starts to be born. And we should emphasize this all the time for ourselves and generation to come. The world population now is probably about 9.7 billion, and moving upward. This is an issue which we have to be careful with, because we are heading for 10 billion. Egypt in 2050 will be more than 150 million. And probably we'll have about 4 million Egyptians going outside of Egypt around the world. We need to be careful what we are going to do with this increase in population. With this number, from 7.9 to 10 billion, this increase of population will happen in 70% of it will happen in the 24 poorest countries of the world. Then the increase in population is not going to happen in the States or in Sweden or in Canada. It will happen in Africa and Asia, in the very poor countries. The young in the world, which is, we need to look at it all the time. The young in the world need more attention, because the young in the world, if they are not well educated, if they are not empowered by education, they will be threat for their country rather than they will be a liability rather than an opportunity for their own country. Climate outmigration and what I call environmental refugees, maybe between 200 million. This is Professor Meyer in Oxford. But other suggestion is that the environmental refugees could be about 1 billion by year 2025. This is a catastrophe for the whole world. These people, they don't have home, they will move, and they will cause disruption, they will cause socio-political upheaval, not only in their countries, but where they are going as well. Therefore, the world is on the edge. This slide is from The Economist, but it's true, because we need to do something, and for us to do something, we need to go for the knowledge which is coming out of science. We need to cater for one of the sustainable goals is zero hunger, and we need to see what we are going to do with this. This is the tools of science which we can use, new mode of remote sensing and GIS and the rest of it, but there is new machinery for it, the biotechnology, genetic engineering, gene editing, gene mining, proteomics, simulation modeling, information technology, expert system, advanced artificial intelligence, renewable energy, solar, wind, biofuel, new energy saving techniques for desalination and water transportation, nanotechnology. We can use biosensors as well as bioprocessing and nanomaterial. This is just to say the few, but when we talk about adaptation, in agriculture we have two pathways. We have to introduce new varieties. We have to, which is drought tolerant to biotic and abiotic stresses, and a new genetical makeup. And we will hear, there is a session where we will have this topic discussed by Professor Magdi Matkour, who is the founder of the Genetic Engineering Institute in Egypt years ago, as well as Dr. Sameh. But this topic is going to be covered. Another topic is new agro-management technique, especially to be used on farm. This is where innovative technology for irrigation nutrition to increase precision. And this is the basis of precision agriculture. And I don't want to get into detail, but we need to go for C4 rice, nitrogen fixing wheat, enhancing photosynthetic pathway, functional breeding, as well as developing the biotic and abiotic varieties. And as I said, for the agro-management technique, we had moisture sensor, optimizing use of nutrition, simulation modeling, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, and IoT, which Internet of Things. All these tools has to be used in order that we can see a difference. As I said, this is how the impact will be on the fruits and the post-harvest losses. There is impact on insects. There is impacts on even disease like rust disease and other diseases which will affect the plants. I want to move faster. The impact on biodiversity is enormous. Not only wild plant, which is very important for us as a human being, which all this diversity in the biodiversity, we keep it in gene banks, and we keep it for a day. This picture here is for the World Gene Bank in Svalbard, which is an island in the North Pole. And we are putting there 6 million accessions just for the world to use. This is in a mountain, glacial mountain. It does not need any electricity. And the seeds are kept there. Icarda seeds are there, all the international centers. And Dr. Swaguddin, when he was chair of the International Agriculture Research Centers with the CGIAR, he signed with the UN an agreement that this does not belong to anybody. It belongs to the whole world. Then nobody can touch it. And all the people has agreed about this, and therefore this gene bank has a flag of the world. And they consider it, they call it, it's the NOAA. This is how it looks inside this mountain, glacial mountain. I was member of the board, and then after that I was vice president of the board of this global trust. This is Miss Wangari, a Nobel Prize winner. She was with us on this, and this is Margaret Castley Carson. She was a chairman of the UN World Population. Anyhow, let me just take you from there to war and the impact of war in biodiversity, and of course, superimposed on the calamity which is coming from increase of temperature, you lose the genetic resources, and therefore this gene bank in Svalbard is very important, like the ship of Noah, Safinat Nuh. Therefore, we had the decrease or the water scarcity in 2025. You see this area which all in red. Egypt is including. These countries are below 500 cubic meter per person per year. We have with us, and he will talk on the third day, the Minister of Agriculture of Jordan. In Jordan, they have 150 cubic meter of water per person per year. And United States is 17,000. The world average is 7,000. If you go less than 500, you have acute water poverty. Egypt will be one of the countries which will have this acute water poverty. Then optimization of water use is very important for us. The Nile was with us 5,500 years ago, where agriculture has started on this Nile Valley. Therefore, we need to use all means and ways of trying to make a difference. And therefore, the breakthroughs and this is the wheat genome sequencing, and this paper was published 2018. It opened a lot of avenues for breeders to build on it and to have drought-tolerant wheat to tolerate more more heat. The invention of the gene editing, whereby you can edit the genes the way which is desired. For instance, you can knock out genes which is sensitive, and you can put genes which is tolerant to drought, and then you can have a drought plant. This publication is 2020, and they talk about CRISPR-Cas9 through gene editing and how it improved the production of rice under very high temperature. This is science. Science can do a lot, but I will talk later about why the whole picture is not completed. And therefore, this is, again, with gene editing in Arabidopsis, which we use as a tool to insert new genes on the other plants. I will talk now about nanotechnology. It can be used, agricultural food system security control. It can be used as smart delivery system. It can be used as a biological label and imaging, a tool for molecular and new cellular biology, new material for pathogen detection and environmental protection, microarray, gene and protein, nanoparticle complex of DNA and peptides, ATP and molecular machine, and devices which can be used as needed. Here it's used in a store to sense the humidity and anything which is coming out of infection of insects or whatever. This is just a very quick flap. This is slow for me. I always go faster than this, but anyhow, a priority for climate change adaptation, we're talking about data. We need a lot of data for the impact of vulnerability for proper assessment. We need institution policies and finance to strengthen capacities for adaptation. We need sustainable and climate smart management of land, water, and biodiversity. We need technology practice process for adaptation. And we need as well the tools for disaster risk management. Smart agriculture is a solution, but it has to be solution with rather than solution and full stop. Climate smart agriculture depends on sustainability, increase of productivity and production and income. National food security and development goals has to be maintained all the way through. Reduce agriculture contribution to climate change, strengthen resilience to climate change variability. This is the elements. Farming 4.0 or agriculture 4.0, which will make a revolution in agriculture. We have produced a book on this in the Academy of Science through the Council for Agriculture and Food, and it's available. We use drones to really have an assessment of moisture, an assessment of spots where there is disease, the use of Internet of Things for water management and machine for routine operation, and soil monitoring sensors. All this is an integrated systems. When we talk about artificial intelligence, we had machine learning, image processing, natural network, IoT, blockchain, bioinformatics, remote sensing and modeling. All these elements are very important. Dr. Ismail. And agro-management techniques with animal and fisheries, biocomputing, bioinformatics. I cannot take another hat because my hat was to stand in a podium like this and talk as one of Ain Shams University professors. I cannot stop being that. I'm sorry, Dr. Ismail. But sometimes I say, go out of the class. We cannot say this to you. Land use, as well as what I'm really heading for is it's not only the classical topics which take in a classical book We need to renovate our colleges of agriculture. We need to be courageous enough to say enough is enough. We are going to go for another field. We tried this in the committee with the Supreme Council. We tried to put for the deans of School of Agriculture different courses. At least we have approved a new domain for ag engineering as well as for genomics. And we had about 4 or 5 new programs. Some deans has adopted this, some other deans wanted to do it at their leisure. We don't have time, dear professors. You need to move fast in order to stay where you are. And you need to have a very fast plane to move forward. I'm just saying this out of what I have seen around the world. And of course, it's up to us all. A computer expert system has to be used as well. And we had a very fine institute here in Egypt, which was founded in the 80s. And it was working very nicely, but now it's not anymore there. Anyhow, we need to use these tools to give us information about the assessment. We need to go for modern irrigation. We need to use Newton film technique. This technique has been used here at Ain Shams University in Chalayan, starting from in 1980 and 81. We introduced this from Littlehampton in England. And Dr. Osama has gone to the University of London to get the information for this. Alan Cooper was with us, as well as other people who invented the system of hydroponic. Therefore, this is used now. This is all in Newton film techniques. You produce vertically, and you increase the production sensibly. And you use some media which is inert, it doesn't give any infection, as well as you can produce fodder for feed in arid areas and help the people. I have seen this in Anand. I have seen this in India, in the Rajasthan desert. They use it to feed the camels and so on. Then, therefore, this elements is not out of a dream. It can be utilized. It's only need the will. This system, which is an AgMet system, I'm saying this because we are in Ain Shams University. The first electronic computerized AgMet system was fixed in any experimental station was in Chalayan in the College of Agriculture here in Egypt. And it's been used at that time. We had created the lab for arid land agriculture, which became now the institutes. And this equipment was there, funded by international agencies. I'm saying this, I'm sharing this with my colleagues and the scholars who are hearing us, because this is a story, this is our case study here, this is what happened in Egypt. For the future, you can have meat, which is synthetic meat, and the people in food technology has to renovate all what they are doing. You can have ice cream, which has nothing to do with eggs and milk and cows. All this is possible through the new technology, new food technology, rather than the food technology which has been taught. This 3-dimension printers can do all sorts of miracles in food. Then synthetic biology is very important domain, and it could happen in the future. As far as Egypt is concerned, we had a strategy with the World Bank, and then another strategy in 2010, and then there was a strategy which has been published by the Academy as well as the Ministry of Agriculture. In all this, we had one major issue: how to optimize water use in Egypt. Therefore, we had a national program to improve irrigation in 8 million acres and save about 11 billion cubic meters of water, as well as parallel to it, there was a program called Linking Farmer to Market. Therefore, you work how to get all this production for exportation and local and for local population as well. The aim was to increase production for crops and animals, export-oriented agriculture, as well as increase water productivity using ICT CAM. This is how Egypt was dependent on the shadoof and water 5,200 years ago, and this is in Upper Egypt a year ago. The same shadoof and the same concept. We need to move fast. ICARDA has done this benchmark sites whereby how to improve water use efficiency around the dry area in West Asia and North Africa. This is a summary of the program, which you can hear a lot about it. Professor Ayman Abu Hadid, a former Minister of Agriculture, as well as he is with us. I think he came back, as well as Professor Abghani Gindi. They are going to give a presentation on this. This is an issue which has to be integrated. Then you have to integrate the private sector, the public sector, the banking system, as well as agricultural extension, the academies, all sorts of entities together to do something. It's not a matter of one fits all. We still aiming, and everybody in the dry area will aim at crops, which is good in the dry area, but as well as good for industry. This is fig plants as well as olives. This is wonderful olives. I hope that we have this. Date palm. And this is a wonderful miracle crop called pomegranate. We all know it. India had a lot of wonderful things like this. When we were working in Afghanistan, they have the best genetic resources there. Egypt has produced a lot of extension tools based on artificial intelligence, and it was spread around the world. I have gone through this already. This food and water energy nexus is very important, and we need to focus on this all the time. Renewables are very important, and we need to go for it. In aquaculture, we will hear from Dr. Osman. Algae as well is very important. This slide only, I will stop in this socio-technical transition. This step, which is in red, is very important because you may have the technology, but doesn't have acceptance with the population. Therefore, this merger is very important. How we can do it, how we can integrate all what we are talking about, how we can look at adaptation without neglecting mitigation. Adaptation is needed now for the developing countries. In Africa, it's needed now. We are in the intensive care unit. People have the luxury of talking about mitigation only. They can have this luxury. But we as African and people in the dry area, we cannot afford to wait until something will happen. To cut long story short, all these countries has lack of coping capacity. They have as well lack of adaptive capacity. And therefore, one can see very clearly that the pattern of the coping pattern is going to change. And with the dynamic change of coping pattern, we need to see tools and means of assessing on the local level what will happen to the community. Of course, this is an integrated natural resources management aspect, so I'm not going to get into it. But how can we go from global to regional to local? All the assessment of the IPCC, all of it is global. Very few are regional. And very, very few, except in certain parts in California and north of France, that you have a local assessment. But for the people, the inhabitants, what really matters for them is the local assessment. not the very high-level assessment. Therefore, we need to migrate from the global assessment to regional assessment to local assessment, and we need to go from mitigation adaptation to resilience. And this is what the objectives are at the end. Then we need problem analysis and system analysis, site selection, solutions, and extrapolation. Therefore, if with this dynamic change in the cropping pattern, you need to introduce new crops. You need to know what is the environment around it. Because all what we are talking about is E, which is environment, by G, by the genetic resources, by P, by people, equal to the yield you got at the end of the day. This dynamic process has to take place. A valley between these mountains, the change of the temperature there will be different from slopes of mountains, from seashores. And the difference is great, is about more than 8 centigrade. It could happen. In Saskatoon, in Canada, there will be about 8 centigrade differences, while in other places you will have only 1 centigrade or 2. This is the ecosystem will vary. Therefore, this is a dynamic process, but it will be based on science. We have to look at all these elements, this is a Baum detector for CO2, which we have fixed with Ecuador in Central Asia. This is in Kazakhstan. Anyhow, I don't want to get into this, but I would like to move very fast. But because the meeting you are going to see in the 3 days, which is coming, will take us through the technology, and from technology we'll go for the social and the political aspects of coping capacity and adaptive capacity. To cut a long story short, I need to go directly. This is the RACC meeting in Bab Alex in 2015, where we had African colleagues coming from everywhere talking about the same problem. What is the price of doing nothing? If we didn't do nothing now, what will happen? It's not only a food crisis. We are going to get to a political crisis for sure. And this is a catastrophe for the world. Therefore, we need vision, imagination, and creativity and innovation to go forward. We have to have hope. In Copenhagen, we said, hope in Hagen. It didn't happen. There was no hope. And I was there in this meeting. And in Cancun, the motto there would say, in Cancun, yes, we can. We didn't. But in Cancun, the Green Climate Fund was created, a technology mechanism where the platform of technology and exchange of science has been established, at least theoretical, but the translation is not there. We talk about things in convention, but no translation. And no translation, we have to ask ourselves why there is no translation. And Mr. Obama, in this slide was made in 2010. He said in 2020, and his hair is becoming white like my colleague Ali Abu Sab. He's asking, he said, I'm sorry, we could have done it. We could have stopped this catastrophe, but we didn't do it in Copenhagen in 2009. Therefore, the translation is very important. I don't want to talk about this slide, but this slide is very important. It's published from the IPPC 6 report in 2022. It shows you from urgent, timely action to really the implementation. It talks about climate change and the tools of adaptation and resilience. Everybody in this room has played snakes and ladder in one one time or another. If you don't go precisely in what is needed to be done, you will miss your target. Then you are going to lose the game. Then science, knowledge, acknowledgement of people who are highly professional and take their opinions in the way forward is very important. If we don't do that, this is what will happen. Misery is our harvest, and this is what we don't want to see. We need people like Abdul Kalam in India, President of India. He was true scientist who built up the Indian Institute for Technology. We need people like Mandela, and here is his Vice Chancellor, is Dr. Ismail Sirajuddin. A person like Borlaug, the only Nobel Prize winner in the field of agriculture. We need all these people. We need people with political will which can be translated. Enhancing coping and adaptive capacity is very important in order to bridge this puzzle. We need to insist that there is a have and have not. We need to move from one side to another in order to go to peace and stability. We need at last to a shift of consciousness on the part of the have and the part of the have not, and a new understanding of oneness of humanity. I do thank you, and I apologize if I took more time from you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adil. Thank you for such an inspiring speech, very informative, very comprehensive. You touched nearly on all topics that will be touched on the coming 2 days. So you paved the way and you set the stage actually for the coming speakers. And I think by this we conclude the session.